It's Cam Ward or bust for the Tennessee Titans after he solidified himself as the number one pick at Monday's Pro Day. I'll break it down on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at the entire offensive side of the ball for the Titans and talk about each individual position and whether the Titans need to make additions through the draft, free agency, or both. One of my favorite offseason games to play. We'll start with the quarterback position, move to the skill position players, and then finish up with the offensive line. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to take a look at the defensive side of the ball and talk about where the Titans need to go on the roster from here and how they should approach each position. Do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. There's big time news all the time, this time of year, time. Also, the draft is right around the corner, and you aren't going to want to miss the NFL draft preview series that we go through here, where we go over around 200 different NFL prospects. But even thinking about doing 200 prospects over the next few weeks has me coughing and ready to go. But with that being said, Cam Ward took the opportunity at his pro day to solidify himself as the number one pick for the Tennessee Titans. And as a matter of fact, when I recorded yesterday's show immediately after the pro day, hadn't learned what was said. Now we know. Cam Ward said it himself. Hey, I told those guys I'm solidifying it today. I'm solidifying it today with the pro day. So with that in mind, we start to hear even more on Tuesday. ESPN's Adam Schefter. The Tennessee Titans will hold an additional private workout with potential number one pick Cam Ward. The Titans have become increasingly impressed with Ward, and while they are expected to listen to offers for the number one overall pick, it now would take an even stronger package to acquire the draft's top selection. Now, some of you guys who refuse to face reality and accept that Cam Ward is your quarterback will read that and say, well, look, they said it'd even take an even stronger package. They're still going to listen to offers, man. They're just trying to hype it up. All right, if that's what you want to take from that, then sure. But Schefter is literally saying, while they're expected to listen to offers, it's going to take a crazy package to get the number one overall pick. What Adam Schefter is conveying with that tweet is not that the Titans are still shopping the pick. He's conveying that Cam Ward is going to be the pick. He solidified it. And then a lot of people say, well, if he solidified it, then why are the Titans bringing him on a private workout? Why are the Titans doing a private workout with Shedeur Sanders then? He solidified it. But guys, you don't stop in the middle of the draft process just because you already know your answer. You go through it until the end, knowing that you have your answer in mind. That's how you operate. You don't just stop. Oh, well, we're not interviewing you. No, we changed our mind. Number one, because that would be dumb for getting information. Because when teams do these visits, when teams scout these players, it's not just for, do I want them on my team? Why would you scout a quarterback? Why would the Titans scout Jackson Dart if they know they want Cam Ward? Well, because they're probably going to have to play against Jackson Dart. Maybe they want to sign Jackson Dart in free agency at one point in time. Those are reasons. Also, every player that you scout is just an opportunity to get smarter with your scouting process. Think, you can't know how impressive it is for Tetairoa McMillan to be his speed at his size until you've watched a bunch of other guys that size not be that speed. So there's plenty of reasons why the Titans are continuing on with the process. But again, in my opinion, the private workout with Cam Ward, what jersey number do you want? Here's your playbook. That's what that private workout is going to be. That is going to be, hey, we're putting the finishing touches on getting ready for you to be our franchise quarterback. The Titans media team was already at the pro day filming stuff. Guys, if you're still kicking and screaming, you got to wake up. But if Cam Ward is QB1, then that means that we move to QB2. And that's Brandon Allen, who the Titans signed as a free agent, 33 years old, 18 games of experience throughout 7 years. He was the Bengals' backup quarterback for their Super Bowl run in the year after, so he knows Callahan's system and what he wants. And now, because Cam Ward's skill set fits better with what Brian Callahan likes to do on offense than what Will Levis's skill set does, he can actually run the offense with the quick spread West Coast style that he wants. And now he has Brandon Allen to teach it. So I have said that if you draft Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, I said this back before I, felt confident I knew what the Titans were going to do. But if you draft a quarterback number 1 overall, you got to trade Will Levis. It's about politics. It's about human beings and their emotions and their feelings. It's not Madden. These aren't computer players that don't need to see each other and just go out there and play. You can't keep Will Levis. So if you trade Will Levis and you have Cam Ward and Brandon Allen, what do you need to do with the quarterback position going forward? Well, in my opinion, at that point, you just need to go with either undrafted free agency or really cheap free agency, because you need camp arms. You need 3 or 4 quarterbacks, probably 3. I think the Titans will have 3. You need at least one more guy on the roster in training camp at the quarterback position just to throw passes. Now we go to the running back position because I do want to stay in the backfield, moving from quarterback. We hit running back, and you have Tony Pollard, you have Tajay Spears, and now you have Julius Chestnut, who's been brought back into the fold. In my opinion, and I will continue to pound the table for this, the Tennessee Titans must add a young power running back. They must add a bigger-bodied, physical run style player that's young, either in the draft on day 3, Ollie Gordon, you're my guy, or go in undrafted free agency and do it. But my belief is you have Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard as your top 2 backs. They can be committee backs, but they can't be bell cow backs. So you need a third running back who can spell them and provide a versatile skill set that they don't offer. And that is size and that is power. Because Tony Pollard may be bigger than Tajay Spears and run with more power than Tajay Spears, but Tony Pollard isn't a big or powerful back. He's more of a receiving back. You did some wide receiver stuff in college. Like, he's not a power back for goal line, short yardage, all that. The Titans need a big power back with a big-bodied frame to be their RB3, and Julius Chestnut will be the undrafted guy who's been hanging around for a while that will compete with that young player to see who RB3 will be on the roster. So what do the Titans need to do at running back? I think they need to add one more for sure. They'll probably add like 2 or 3 more, though, for training camp purposes, but one more running back that should be expected to contribute. And I think it should come on day 3 of the NFL draft, and at minimum, as an undrafted free agent from a great running back class. But let's talk about the guys who catch passes for the Titans. Before we do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. And now the big college basketball tournament is going on, and getting tickets to it shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. They have the Gametime Picks feature, which curates the best deals and makes it easier for you to find better value on tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. You get great features like a panoramic view from your seat before you buy, no surprise fees, and Gametime's lowest price guarantee. Well, you'll get credited by Gametime 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's continue today's roster review edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Cam Ward solidifying himself as the number one pick for the Tennessee Titans and what that means for the quarterback depth chart. We talked about the running backs in the backfield. Now I want to move to the pass catchers. As a reminder, some of the things that I wanted to add in the first segment, kind of run out of time, try to keep this ship going, but the smiles from Brian Callahan in the picture with Cam Ward and that interaction, him saying, I'm solidifying it today. Cam Ward said, I'd be happy to be there if he was drafted by the Titans. I mean, what else could you possibly want, folks? It's time to get excited. But with that being said, who is he going to throw to? Right now, you look at the wide receiver position. You have Calvin Ridley. You guys know that I'm not a believer, but you have Treylon Burks. He would definitely be wide receiver 2 right now if the season started today. You have Van Jefferson, who I think is more of a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, but he's the Titans wide receiver 3 right now. You have Bryce Oliver, the undrafted free agent from last year, who acquitted himself very well throughout the season. You have Jaquan Jackson, the much maligned rookie, who was drafted last year and had punt return issues with muff punts. He's not as good of a wide receiver as Bryce Oliver is. If he's not going to be the punt returner, Jaquan Jackson will be cut this offseason. So he better figure that out soon. Colton Dow? Is he still in the cards? I don't know, man. I don't see Colton Dow being on this team by any stretch of the imagination by the time roster cutdowns come. So when you're looking at that group, do you fix it with the draft, free agency, or both? I'm sorry, the answer has to be both. It has to be both. The Titans have to draft a wide receiver early in the draft. With one of their top 4 picks, they have to draft a wide receiver. They have to. It's top 120. They don't get a wide receiver in the top 120 picks. What are we doing? And the Titans, I expect, will try to trade down in the second round. And if they do that and get an extra third-round pick, say they add a third-round pick, well, now you have 4 picks in the top 103. You definitely 103. Yeah, a little reference for my folks out there. But if you don't take a wide receiver in the top 103 picks, with 4 picks there, what are we really doing here? Like, we're setting up Cam Ward for failure at the end of the day with Ridley, Burks, and Jefferson as his top 3 wide receivers. So I think, no doubt, unequivocally, the Tennessee Titans must draft a wide receiver with one of their top 4 picks. Quite honestly, I would be fine if the Tennessee Titans drafted 2 wide receivers, one with an early pick and then another one on day 3 where you get a guy who could probably play special teams for you, but maybe you develop him. Someone in the Bryce Oliver ilk. Now, Bryce Oliver was an undrafted free agent. Maybe the Titans can find an undrafted free agent, but I don't think that this wide receiver class is quite as good as last year's wide receiver class. So the players that are going to be undrafted free agents aren't going to be as good as Bryce Oliver was. Think the better talent that you have at the top, the better talent that you have at the bottom, the better talent that you have that goes undrafted. You know what I mean? So I would be more inclined to take wide receiver at the top of the draft. And then, like I've been saying for a few weeks now, I think let's call it a couple of weeks, we'll say. But I think the Tennessee Titans are in a position where they have to sign one of these veteran wide receivers. They have to sign an Amari Cooper, a Keenan Allen, a Stephon Diggs, someone in that ilk. If they want to have a respectable receiving core for Cam Ward, that's what you have to do. Now, if you go out and you do that, that gives you some flexibility to where maybe you don't have to take a wide receiver with your number 35 overall pick. Maybe you don't have to take a wide receiver with a 3rd round pick. Maybe you can wait to take wide receiver at pick 120, pick 141, maybe pick 103. You know what I mean? You can wait later if you address wide receiver a little bit earlier with somebody who probably going to be past his prime, probably going to be on a 1-year deal with little financial commitment in the future, but at least is a veteran who can give you some competency for your young rookie quarterback. And then you could take a rookie wide receiver to pair with him a little bit later. That is the route that I would go at wide receiver if I'm the Titans. Now that takes us to tight end. And what I'm known for at the end of the day, when you guys listen to this show, what you know I'm going to give you is I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be myself so hard that I can't even help it. I am myself. I tell you guys the truth, how I really feel, and you guys know that. So I'm going to tell you the truth when I say this. I don't know how to feel about the tight end position, man. I don't know. You got Chig Okonkwo, you got Josh Wiley, you got David Martin Robinson from last year, Thomas Odukoye, and I continue to say the Tennessee Titans rostered 5 tight ends last year, and they barely used the bottom 2. They barely used DMR and Thomas Odukoye, and we were told that the reason that they used 2 roster spots on 2 tight ends that they didn't plan on having active for most game days, the reason they did that is because those tight ends were so good that they would get picked up by other teams if they let them go. They wouldn't be able to get them back on the practice squad. And that they were so interested in developing those players. Well, one of them better be worth a damn. You know what I'm saying? And if one of them is, then you have Chig, you have Wiley, you have, one of those players. Let's say it's DMR for right now. David Martin Robinson. So with those 3, I'm just always in this place where when I talk about the tight end position on the Titans, I'm like, I don't really know what to tell you guys because I like Chig Okonkwo. I think Chig Okonkwo is a solid player in the NFL. I think I would rather have Chig Okonkwo than probably 10 other starting tight ends in the NFL. You know what I mean? But I also know the truth that Chig Okonkwo isn't a true starting tight end. Chig Okonkwo isn't Delanie Walker level. Chig Okonkwo is never going to be a good enough blocker to be a true starting tight end where he can be that wide tight end with his hand in the dirt on the line of scrimmage next to the offensive tackle. He can execute a double team and duo and blow a defensive end off the ball with J.C. Latham or with Dan Moore. Like, he's never going to be that player. Never going to be that guy. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have a role and he doesn't have a purpose and he can't have, you can use Chig Okonkwo as your move tight end, your second tight end, just like Delanie Walker was used with the San Francisco 49ers, where he's got that split flow motion where he goes behind the line of scrimmage and escapes into the flat, bring him on a backside drag, show 2 tight end looks, and then split out into 4 wide and have Chig Okonkwo as a big slot. Like, you could do that kind of stuff with Chig Okonkwo, but he can't be a true number 1 tight end. He's never going to be that. It's going into year 4, guys. He's never going to be that. And Josh Wiley, same thing. Wiley, in theory, he's just never going to be a true starting tight end for the Tennessee Titans. Josh Wiley is looking at a career as a Jeff Swaim or a McCole Pruitt, a Luke Stocker. Like, that's the kind of player that Josh Wiley is going to be. Not in skill set, but like in their value and their role on a football team. Josh Wiley's never going to be a number 1 starting tight end in the NFL that can do it all for you. Just not going to happen. So it's like the Titans have enough at tight end to where I don't want them to go out and like do something crazy at tight end. We're not, taking Tyler Warren or something like that at number 1, But at the same time, they could upgrade. Like, it would not be hard to upgrade. And if you were able to get a true number 1 tight end with the size to be a Y and the ability to be a pass catcher as well, I guess it would be hard to pass on. And that's why in my Mock Draft Monday episodes, when I trade back and I get that extra 3rd rounder, Mason Taylor from LSU is just staring at me. And I'm like, man, especially we see Mike Gesicki go to the Bengals and what he was able to do. In theory, Josh Wiley could be that kind of player, but I just don't think he's ever going to get there. Tight end is one of those spots where if the Titans went tight end super early and way earlier than I thought, like 3rd round, I wouldn't be as shocked as maybe I initially thought, because you could definitely do a lot better than Chig, Josh Wiley, David Martin Robinson, and Thomas Odukoye. At the end of the day, if you want to make this team better, taking a mid-round pick and getting a solid tight end might not be the worst thing ever in a pretty good tight end class. But with that being said, let's get into the trenches, baby. Time to talk about the offensive line. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We're doing a roster review of the offensive side of the ball tomorrow, barring any big news. If there's big Titans news for some reason, so anything happens, I'll be going over that. But barring any big news on tomorrow's show, we're going to look at the defensive side of the ball, and I'm going to go position by position and talk about how the Titans need to add going forward. Now, before we cap off today's show talking offensive line, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. Each and every day, Monday through Friday. Remember, it's Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. For your second listen, though, check out Locked On NFL. I host Locked On NFL as well. Would appreciate your support over there. It's free, just like Locked On Titans, all year round, Monday through Friday. Get all your NFL news with me as well. But at the offensive line spots, at offensive tackle, and look, guys, I know that there are some players on the team who maybe I'm not like mentioning by name, practice squad level players and stuff like that. But I'm talking about the guys that are legitimately going to be on the roster and the holes that are legitimately on the roster. That's what we're actually talking about here. So you have Dan Moore, you have J.C. Latham, who are your two starters. And then the Titans still have NPF on the roster. Why is my question. You would save $3 million by cutting NPF and just getting him as far away from the Tennessee Titans as you possibly can. But that hasn't happened. You have Jalen Duncan still on the roster. Another guy. I hated the Jalen Duncan pick. Never thought that was going to work out. And after seeing him last year and then him immediately getting hurt, coming back, getting hurt, I have no interest in Jalen Duncan at the end of the day. So with that in mind, you have 4 offensive tackles there. You need at least 2 more. If I were the Titans, I would go and I'd get Jedrick Wills in free agency to compete with NPF and Jalen Duncan to be my primary swing backup. Probably going to cost you like $2 million. Make NPF or Jalen Duncan earn it if they're going to make the roster, which let's hope not. But then on day 3 of the NFL draft or day 2, if the right value falls to you, you take another offensive tackle. Now, personally for me, if the Titans are going to take an offensive lineman in the top 100 picks, I think it should be an interior offensive lineman. Because next year, the starting spot that you really got to figure out is right guard. Because Kevin Zeitler's 35 and on a 1-year contract. So if you could get a really good interior offensive lineman, like I mentioned, like a Wyatt Millum, or if Gray Zabel slides, you know what I mean? The Titans trade back to pick 48, and Gray Zabel is there from North Dakota State. You take him. Now you have your right guard for the next 5 years. But I could see him going offensive tackle too. Because at the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the last 2 first-round picks were offensive tackles because they needed to replace Dan Moore. They did not want him in the starting lineup. And I think the Titans will very, very soon be looking to do the same thing. So maybe the Titans get a year ahead of it and they go get that offensive tackle now. But I think more realistically with the contract of Dan Moore, the Titans would go get an interior offensive lineman and would get another offensive tackle on day 3 who they can develop, like a Holland Pierce, who I mentioned yesterday. A Charles Grant is a good name. Maybe an Anthony Belton, who doesn't necessarily need development and is ready to play right away, but still a young player who you could, pop in as a backup tackle and then be your starting left tackle going forward. So I think if the Titans do go into the draft for offensive tackle, it'll be late, but they certainly need to add at least 2 or 3 more offensive tackles to fill out their training camp roster. I just think the draft is the right way to do that with young guys and then bring in one other veteran and a guy like Jedrick Wills. Cut NPF and use the money on Jedrick Wills. But with that being said, we look at the interior. You have Skoronski, you have Kevin Zeitler, you have Lloyd Cushenberry, you have Corey Levin, you have Andrew Rupsich, who was brought back on an exclusive rights free agent deal. To me, this is you have to draft one. You have to draft an interior offensive lineman. That's where you add. You need one more interior offensive lineman to have your 6 for training camp. Go get one in the draft. Mid-round, whether it be if the Titans end up with a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick, you got to get an interior offensive lineman that you can develop behind Kevin Zeitler to ultimately and maybe and hopefully become a starter next year in that spot. That's what you have to hope for if you're the Titans. And to have a requisite talent in a draft class that isn't that great at interior offensive line, I think you probably need to do that a little bit earlier than maybe you think that you do. And that's why I loved my mock draft from yesterday. Absolutely loved it. Wyatt Millum, a big-bodied guard, former offensive tackle. Oh, man, that would be excellent for the Tennessee Titans. But that's how I see each position on the offensive side of the ball. Again, we're going to do defense on tomorrow's show, but that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.